Hello and welcome back to Spirit of Nature Art and episode 2 of this little altered book. So far we have done these 2 middle pocket pages, and today we're going to focus on the 2 inside covers. So I'm taking this leftover piece of reinforced file folder from another project and just starting to cut it down to size to see what it's going to look like on that inside back cover, because I have an idea that I'll use that bit there that's already folded to create a little kind of flappy page that's going to go there. So I'm just kind of holding that up in place and thinking about how that might look. I think I want to create an extra little tuck on that back bit as well. So rather than cutting that bit really short, I'm going to keep a bit extra on there to create a tuck. And now we can see that those original score marks aren't going to work because they won't allow me to keep that tab there. So I'm just going to line this up and mark where I do want the score marks to be, and just bringing it in my cutter and scorer here, and I'm going to use my scoring blade to score a new set of lines. Don't worry about the other score marks, we'll burnish those out in just a moment. So just folding those new score lines and seeing how that's going to sit on the page a lot better. This is that extra little flap that I left over, so I've just put a thumb notch in it to make it easier to make it a tuck spot. I'm just using my burnishing tool there to burnish out those old score marks so that we have something like this. A little extra flappy page with a gusset on it and a little tuck spot. And then I have this extra bit of leftover and I'm thinking how I might use this. Maybe I might kind of create an extra little page in there as well. So I'm just going to add a score mark there so that I can fold along that line, give it a good burnish so that I could potentially add that in as an extra page as well. Because we've got the gusset there, we've got room to have an extra page. That's not how I actually end up using it, but you'll see that in a moment. So this extra page I'm now going to attach to the other side. There we go. So that that little tuck spot and that extra flap come over the top of it. And I have this leftover bit of scrapbook paper. It might be from a Tim Holtz one, or it might be from a 49er Market, I can't remember. And I just want to, I'm just tidying up the size of that so it's going to fit, because I want to add this little fussy cut bird here onto that as the background. And I'm kind of lining up my fussy cut bird with the edge so that as much as possible there's parts of that bird touching the very edge of that page, because I'm going to cut out so that that bird becomes part of a silhouette around the edge. So you'll see here I'm sticking that in so the top of the bird's head and the branch and the tail both touch, or all of them touch the edges of that page, so that I can now get my scissors and fussy cut around it. So we've got this cutout that's going to hang over the page. I'm cutting this out now before I stick it down so that I can get the detail, but essentially what I'm going to do is stick it onto that flap and then cut around it again. Now if I was going to stick it all down and cut it all in one go, I might struggle to get all of the detail. So you can see now I've cut it and stuck it down, and I've also lined the back with some tea dye paper. And now I'm going to turn my attention to that other flap. So I've got a piece of the leftover page from the original book, which I just liked all the mottled markings on. So I thought it'd be really nice to use that. It saves me creating that aged look. And I've already got my fussy cut images that I think I'd quite like to use. So I'm just holding that in place and flipping it over so I can draw around that tab shape so that I can cut that out now. I find it easier to cut it out before I stick it down. I can just get into all the nooks and crannies a little bit easier. And because this paper is quite delicate, I'm just going to be careful when I am kind of inking the edges, and I'm also going to stick this down with my glue stick rather than that really wet tacky glue, just to make sure nothing tears as I'm sticking it down. So just giving it a good burnish before I start to think about adding some of those details that we've used on the other pages already. And I also want to add a little bit of tea dye paper to that spine as well, so that we're bringing that colour through. So I've just inked that and added a bit of stamping to that as well, so that we can stick that along that spine so it no longer just looks like a bit of plain file folder. There we go. It doesn't matter, it's not exactly the same colour because you're not really going to see that next to that page. That's going to form the spine. So here are all my pre-cut, fussy cut images that I decided to use on this page. I love this little bird. He looks like he's on some kind of secret mission. And again, when I fussy cut out the floral part of it, just bringing in extra little bits as well. So rather than cutting around it exactly, there's an extra piece of leaf there. It just gives me some flexibility to kind of add the balance to the page. So I think that might be a Tracy Scott label, not Tracy Scott. Fox Creative, that's it. And again, just some more little labels and fussy cut images. I liked that little label at the bottom because I thought this bird looked like an Arthur. So same as before, bit of tea dye paper just to line that inside of that flap there. And I'll come back and do some collage on that at another point. But I want to look at the big part of the back of that flap. So as I was looking for a single piece of tea dye paper, I found this nice scrap of hand-dyed lined paper as well, and I kind of thought, it's already torn and it has that really nice kind of aged edge to it already, and I quite like the look of it. So that one kind of was a bit of an accident. It fell out of my dyed paper pack, but I thought, you know what, I'm really liking it. As did that circle. That was left over from when I die cut a hole in a page for another project. And again, I just kind of thought what a nice element that was to help those two fussy cut birds pop off the page. So just using my distress inks, the same ones I've used all the way through the project, edging all of the pieces and just playing around with how they're going to stick together. This is that same paper Artsy text stamp that I used on the other pages as well. So sticking with a kind of repeating on the stamps as well as on the other elements too. And just sticking this all down using the tacky glue, just making sure I'm getting a nice connection there. So this flap now is almost finished. So I can put that one to the side and start to think about how the other side will work. So this is how those two flaps are going to work on this side. We've got Arthur on the front there, and then those lovely two bright blue birds on the inside, and then that lovely fussy cut bird on the other side, which when we move that gives us access to that little tuck spot there. So you can see how that side is starting to come together, and that will sit next to the inside pocket pages. That's just one of them there from the previous episode. And now I want to think about the other side. So I created another flap in exactly the same way as I did Arthur with that lovely red and yellow bird. So now we have all these elements done, and I want to add something slightly different onto the inside of the front cover. A different kind of, I want the flips and flaps to come out in a different way, so it's not all exactly the same. So I'm taking another offcut that is just slightly longer than that cover, and I'm chopping it in half. And I'm finding that central mark on the inside cover there so that I can line those pieces up and mark where that extra hangover is, because where that hangover is, I'm going to score and fold so that I've got two flaps that meet in the middle. And we are going to have some fun with some magnets, making sure that we've got that lovely satisfying clunk. So I'm just going to chop the edges off there so that we are ready to stick those down and burnish that. And then I'm going to do exactly the same as I did on the other flaps. I am going to bring my distress inks in, and I am going to do the same kind of background as I did on the other flaps, and then add some fussy cut birds and other elements to it as well, so that we've got this with the mockingbird and this really cute little black and white one down the bottom here that are going to create those up and down flaps there. So now we have all the elements created. Here they all are. In the next episode, what we're going to do is look at how we can put all of this together so that we can construct the book and finish it.